Welcome to Wisdom Journey, the podcast where we explore the path of building an online business from the ground up. Here, I share my wins, struggles, lessons, and experiments so you can learn, adapt, and grow alongside me. I also interview experts in their respective field. Whether you're just starting out or looking for new strategies to scale, this is your space to find inspiration and practical wisdom. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to take you on this journey. Today on Wisdom Journey, we're joined by Arturas Tarasevicius, a marketing system specialist who helps coaches, consultants, and digital product creators build infrastructure that allows their businesses to generate revenue even while they sleep. Arturas has worked with more than 200 clients and managed over 2 million in ad spend, contributing to more than 150 million in revenue. He helped scale a US-based logistics company from 200 to 500 employees, leading their marketing departments from scratch and designing acquisition systems that quadrupled inbound leads while cutting costs per lead by 4 times. But what makes this conversation powerful for our audience is this. Torres doesn't focus on hype hacks or surface level tactics. He focuses on the systems underneath the business, acquisition engines, backend workflows, operational structure, and the parts most creators ignore until growth breaks them. If you're building an online income and feel like you're working hard but not seeing predictable results, this episode is about what's happening behind the curtain. Welcome to the podcast, Arturas.
Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, my pleasure. You've worked with over 200 businesses. When you look across all of them, what patterns separate those who scale from those who stall?
So the biggest problem that I see small and medium-sized businesses face is usually there's a problem with work delegation, and a lot of the times the owners of these small companies they want to do everything by themselves, and the biggest problem is that the way they're making decisions is stopping the business growth. So the the key takeaway I got from working with so many clients is that you have to be very careful with your decision making when it comes to focusing on growth. You have to allow growth to happen. And that might mean that you have to step out of the way and get somebody else taking care of that growth. So, having the right identity, even as a business owner or a small business, you have to really look at the interest of your business and not your personal interest, if that makes sense.
Wow.
So that's the big takeaway.
Yeah. When a coach or creator says, I'm doing everything, but nothing is working, what's usually happening beneath the surface?
So usually, if you look at a business, coaching business, for example, and any business in general, there are business principles that apply to any business, big or small. And coaches, a lot of times, it all starts with having money in the business. So if nothing is working out, the first problem a coach should be looking to solve is, how do I bring in more clients? How do I make money to keep the business afloat? Because if nothing is working, there's only a small period of time where you're going to keep trying something, and sooner or later you're just going to give up because the business is not generating any money. So the first problem always to solve is, okay, I need to find clients, I need to get clients. And usually getting clients is a simple problem, but it's uncomfortable to solve it, because it's going to mean that you're going to have to generate a bunch of leads, maybe talk to people, and start doing some sales. And a lot of coaches really have to step over themselves. So first, you also have to make the sale to start the coaching. It's not enough to just deliver the service. If you don't sell yourself, if you don't sell your services, you won't have anyone to coach. So first you have to sell and then deliver. So focus on that first problem. Make those sales.
Oh, earlier on in the intro, I said, you work on the back end of the business. What was the first time you realized that the back end systems, matter more than front end content, just posting and hoping, post and spray, how do they call it, and hope.
Yeah, so I think the biggest experience came from, because I used to work with many different businesses, and this experience came not from the coaching space. I applied to the coaching space now, but it came from just business space. And I've had clients who would not change their infrastructure. So they wouldn't change anything. They wouldn't change the salespeople. They wouldn't change the service. They wouldn't change their offers. They wouldn't change the delivery, but they would expect some kind of growth. So nothing was changed. They were at the level that they were, and they don't want to change the foundation, but they want to change the outcome. And they would struggle every single month, and quota, it would be a struggle to scale something that naturally isn't happening. And they would struggle and struggle and struggle. And that was their day to day. That was their business experience. Then I had another client who didn't have any marketing, but had all the backend systems in place. So good service, good delivery, good salespeople, everything's in place, but they didn't have scale. So they didn't run any marketing. And business was going really well. And then we only put a little bit of money into marketing,
Yeah.
and the whole business blew up like crazy.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, I'm such a good marketer. But after that experience, after a few years working with that client, and we took that logistics business to crazy heights. We scaled it from about 40 people to more than 250. We spend more than 2 million on ads, and we generate about 150 million of revenue. But that was only possible not because I'm some magician. I simply put in my technical knowledge when it comes to performance marketing, and they already had all the backend systems in place, and I had an extremely good success story. And after that client and after working for those 2 years, for the last year I've been freelancing and just helping small and medium sized businesses. And I was always thinking about this. Okay, how did that happen? That was an amazing experience. How did that happen? And very quickly I realized that happened only because all the backend systems were in place. And now when I come to these, when I go to work with these small companies and medium sized companies, I see that their backend systems are out of whack. They want some kind of an outcome, but the the offer isn't clear. The salespeople don't know what they're doing. There's a lot of internal problems, and so the results are not coming because those internal problems, the foundation is not solved. And usually, if they want me to do some kind of service for them, let's say try and scale them, I already know it's not going to work out because I can see that the salespeople don't know what they're doing. So when there's going to be more leads coming in, they'll be even more confused. Like it won't solve any of the problems. So I know that fixing that problem internally will actually help them. They will start generating more money without me even helping them with marketing. So I kind of started looking at these backend systems and, what's their offering, what's their SOPs, how are the salespeople working, where are they getting those leads, how expensive are those leads, kind of looking at the backend systems to make sure that at least the business is generating cash. And so that experience and seeing many different businesses already before starting to work with coaches, I saw the experiences. I've worked with businesses who struggle on a day-to-day, and they're not changing any of the backend systems. And I saw businesses that had extremely good backend systems, didn't have the scale, but if you spend a little bit of money on marketing, it blows up like crazy. It was always there, ready to explode, but there was nobody lighting up the powder. The nobody was lighting up the powder for it to go to blow up. So now I take the same approach to these smaller companies and coaches and consulting businesses, looking into their backend systems. And when it's usually it's solopreneurs who are doing this coaching businesses, or they have like assistant teams, like very small teams of maybe up to 6 people. The reason a lot of them are struggling is because there is not enough of that business backend. They're simply kind of doing something like and hoping it works out, maybe putting some content here, going on a podcast there, uh, maybe do a random offer, maybe randomly spend some money on ads here. Oh, that didn't work out. Ads don't work. They tell themselves ads don't work, so they're looking for something else, looking for some shiny thing, some new community building tool is out, so I'm gonna go there and start a school community. And they start a school community, they see that nobody is coming to the school community because they're not making any sales. There's nobody to kind of, and then they like, okay, the communities don't really work, so they move on to something else. It simply doesn't work out. And the reason it doesn't work out is because they haven't got the basics right. And the basics are sales are being made every single week, every single day. Maybe it's done by the person, maybe it's done automatically. Maybe if you're running email campaigns or something like that, you're still able to bring people in, and email campaigns do the conversion. So the sales have to happen every single day, whether it's you doing them or they're automated. But you cannot do anything else in the coaching business If you're not making sales, there's nobody to serve. So that's the biggest problem to fix.
Oh,
Yeah.
if you had to audit a creator's business in 30 minutes, what are the three backend areas you would check first?
So firstly, the three most important are, first one, where are they getting leads from? So do they have any leads do they have any prospects or leads? So usually this could be you getting followers, right? Every single follower you get on your Instagram, let's say you're based on Instagram, every follower on Instagram is a potential lead. So where are those leads coming from? Then the second step is the sales, the sales process. How does the conversion happen? So let's say you have 3,000 followers. Those are your leads, 3,000 leads. Maybe some of them you know, some of them you don't know. What's the process to take these 3,000 people into a call? Usually there's no process for a failing business. For a good business, there is a process. And usually it looks like appointment setter, messaging all the followers and kind of nurturing the followers and then
Yeah,
booking call for somebody to close them. So that's the second step. What's the where's the nurturing? Who's booking the sales call? And how are the sales happening? And the third one is very important, the complexity of fulfillment. So, okay, you're a coach. Let's pretend you're a coach. Your leads are just followers. So you're making content, you get followers on your Instagram, and you contact every single one of them, and you try to get them on the call. So okay, two problems are fixed. You get people on the call, then you make the sale, then you have to deliver. So how does that delivery look like? If that delivery looks like 2 calls every week, that means there's only a specific amount of hours you can actually spend on calls. And that means that as you get more clients, you won't have enough time to actually serve. You'll only be able to serve a specific number of clients simply due to the limiting nature of time. And usually there's a very hard cap for a coach on the delivery side. Of course, it all starts with, where are the leads coming from? Then are the sales happening? And then the third one, where is the cap? Like how many clients can I have at one time? And usually when you have people coming in, sales are getting done, there's some income coming in, and you reach a point where you're not able to take in more clients. So instead you stop reaching out, you stop making sales, and then you work with your current clients. And then in a few months it dies down, you lose half of the clients, you start losing clients, and then you see that, okay, you're not making enough money. So you start doing reach outs again to the leads and you start making sales calls again. So I would figure out that third place. What can you change in your business to make sure you're able to bring in more people into your business? And usually it looks like this. You start by doing one-to-ones. Then when you realize, okay, I don't have enough time to take in more clients, I'm going to do one-to group coaching. So then you take on groups. Then a group might go up to 60 maybe people, 70 people, maybe 200 people, one too many. Then what happens is that the quality of your students starts dropping and some of them start leaving bad reviews, and you realize that the biggest value is still one-to-one because you're actually able to impact the person's lives when you're working with them directly. So then you go back and you start increasing your prices and start going back to one-to-ones. But usually, and so this process repeats again. Okay, so where do I get these more expensive clients now? Because I'm raising my prices to work one-on-one. Okay, so sales now a little bit different. They're a little bit harder. Do I have the skills to actually make those more expensive sales? And then, the technical side, do I have a way to actually provide that service? And then again, you start running out of time and your lifestyle catches up a little bit and you're stuck in this cycle. And I've seen coaches who charge $50 an hour, and I've seen coaches who charge few thousand an hour. And they've just been going through these 3 steps again and again and again. And at the end of every step, you face a new problem. And usually when you fill out your first stage, your one-to-ones that are cheap because you don't have any clients, when there's too many of them, you increase the prices or you change the model to a group or to a community. Then that also has limits. And you realize that now you're serving a different person and you're not helping them at a level that you maybe want to. So you're forced to increase the prices, getting back to an old model, and it just goes on and on and on.
I noticed what you said earlier on that followers are leads because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
creators have this mentality that you just post and post and pray and hope that some you get leads and you sell, and there's no intentional, oh, this is how people who interact with our content, we get them to buy or to join as leads or to join the sales process. I'm curious. Let's take a platform like um what's your favorite social platform? So I want to use a platform, so you give us a perfect example in terms of content. What's your favorite social media platform?
Uh, it really depends. It really depends on the kind of business and the kind
Okay,
of coaching you're doing. My favorite is Instagram,
okay,
um, because it's pretty visual.
okay,
I like the way the communication
okay,
is happening there, and I like the kind of people that use Instagram.
okay. Let's say Instagram. Let's say I create content on Instagram. I create content about podcasting and all that. What would the customer journey look like?
So what's your end goal? What's your end goal?
I do
Get guests.
I do I do podcast coaching, and I also I do podcast services. So I help people launch their podcast and produce and grow their podcast. That's like the service and then the
Okay,
coaching.
so you're okay. I got it. So you're helping podcast for people to make podcasts, basically,
Yeah.
or already podcast hosts. I think the approach is pretty clear. So in your case, you need some kind of content
Okay.
that would nurture or attract a podcast host. So it's really great you're doing this podcast because this podcast could be your case study, right?
Yeah.
And leverage this podcast case study of your own podcast and what you can help a beginner podcast or a podcast that's not having enough results. uh, if I was in your shoes, I'd start reaching out. I wouldn't start doing some kind of content. Maybe I'd make one content piece on YouTube, like this big how I got this podcast to this and this many listeners, getting in top 3 in these countries. Then I would simply reach out to podcast hosts and start sending them this case study. Hey, do you want to see how I've done it? Do you want to see how I've done it? Some of them will watch it, some of them will don't, but it will get the conversation started. And then the the conversion of that lead. So if a person responds and you can see that they're positively responding to you, like, okay, thanks, I'm interested, then the goal is to sell them the meeting, right? So on the messages, you're only telling them, let's have a call. Maybe I can show you more in depth, and you maybe can tell me a little bit more about your situation. I could see how I could help you. Maybe I can give you some advice, but it's gonna be a sales call. But you frame it as you frame it as you want to have a look at their situation,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna figure out if you can help them or not. The and this is a very common approach. It's called a free consultation. A lot of coaches who are just starting use this free consultation model. So the goal is to bring as many people, to invite them to free consultations. Come on, tell me what you're doing, but you need to have some kind of a case to leverage. So nobody's gonna simply come on a call with you if you don't have anything to leverage for it. That's why I say it's really great you're doing this podcast, because this podcast is going to be your asset. You're going to say, that's how you're going to start the conversation. And usually if you have a specific result already achieved, you're able to take that result and take that case and just tell any new prospect, hey, this is what I've done. I see you're trying to do podcasts. Do you want me to show you how I've done it? And if a
Wow.
person goes, or if the person goes no, then you move on. You, you keep reaching out. And the uh, if you want to take that content angle and have people following you from the content, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, because you have to figure out what kind of hooks are really crushing in your niche. So you have to figure out what our other podcast coaches are doing, what kind of what really hooks in somebody who's just starting a podcast or wants to start a podcast? Like why do they want to do it? Most likely they want to get some kind of attention, they want to build some kind of a network. That's the main reason. Maybe they have a service that they provide, so they need to do this podcast. They pick a specific audience and they're making content for that audience, but they know that they're basically building a business, and they're going to have from their audience some clients, maybe from the guests, some clients. So they're always, I think a lot of the times, it really depends on the podcast. Some podcasts, I believe, are like passion based, and some of them are very financially based. So if you're taking that content approach, you have to really use those financial hooks even when it comes to podcasting. So this is how much money I've made doing podcasts, even though you might have not directly made from them, but they perhaps resulted in some kind of a business increase. That way you're going to get people who are interested in getting or doing podcasts for financial reasons. Because usually if you have some kind of a coaching service, if it's a passion project, very likely I would not want to pay somebody money for a
Yeah.
passion project. But if I'm treating it like an investment, then I might want to invest into myself so that I could invest in my own. Basically, I would want to invest in my own podcasting skill because I know that it's going to result in future income for me. So it makes a lot of sense to invest into coaching. So if you want to take that content approach, just remember, talk about your results from the financial standpoint. Then, even if you start doing outreach, you can send your videos to these people, to the prospects. If you see somebody starting a podcast, and I think you probably would make a lot more sense instead of focusing on Instagram to get people, because I think they're very far apart. Hosts and people who want to become hosts, they're very far up, like far in between. Like if you find out somebody who wants to do drop shipping, they're way more common. Like every second, every third person,
Yeah.
like for a specific demographic, maybe young, like people in their between 16 and 25, every second, every third will want to do drop shipping. But for podcasters, I think it's a little bit more far in between, and the demographic goes a little bit older as well. So the best place to find them, doubt it would be Instagram. I think a great place would be something like Reddit communities, like Reddit slash podcasts. Simply people who are already researching about podcasts, who have an intention about starting a podcast, they'll probably end up in some Reddit community asking people about podcasts, like what kind of equipment would I need, what kind of microphone is best, what kind of studio this equipment I need. And that's where you actually do the follows. Like, hey, I see you're probably thinking about doing a podcast. Look, I've actually made a video specifically for you showing how I made money with my podcast. Do you want to see it?
Yeah.
Person goes, yes, send the video, and then you start following up. Let's hop on a call. Maybe you can tell me a little bit more about your idea. I can maybe give you some tips before starting. And you simply bring people on the call, and in the call you let them tell their side, what their vision is, how they want to do it, what they want to do it, what's the purpose for the podcast. And then you figure out if there's a fit, if you see you can help them get what they want, then you say, okay, I actually have an offer for you. I could give you coaching, right? So you could accelerate a little bit the results that you want to get from your podcast. You can use, I can guide you and coach you to get those results faster instead of you making rookie mistakes and stuff like that. So I would use this approach. I wouldn't make too much content, because usually content is really good for very broad offers, like taking people, and especially you see a lot of like courses and stuff like that, if they're aimed at a very very broad audience. So for example, a money making course like trading,
Yeah.
right? You probably seen trading courses. Trading is so broad, like you can take a random person. My uncle was maybe 44, and if I start talking to him about trading, it's like up and down. You just press buy or sell. It's very simple.
Yeah.
And so even a person with completely random background, 44 years old, I can tell him, I can say, there's this money making model. You just either buy or sell. There's only two things you can do. So naturally, trading courses are aimed at the biggest audience possible, because any person who can press buy or sell is is a target, right? If I
Yeah.
tell you uh, like a business model, growth operating, much more complicated. You have to know sales, ads, copywriting, all the technical setup, how to make websites. Like, I would not be able to take any random 44-year-old and say, hey, do you want to learn this business model? And he would say, okay, what do I have to do? Oh, you have to make websites, you have to use AI, you have to make automations, you have to run ads, you have to design ads, you have to make. He's going to be like, what the hell? No chance. I'm too old for this. But if I tell him, hey, I have this business model, it's either up or down. You in? And he's like,
Yeah.
and I can tell there's also a few things you can do to figure out if it's gonna go up or down. So it's much easier to sell to a very broad audience. And I think when it comes to what you're offering, you're not offering it to that broad audience. Like, you won't come to a random 52-year-old, hey, make a podcast. And he's gonna be thinking, oh, I need some studio, I need this podcast, I don't like looking at myself, I don't like talking to other people, maybe I don't like the sound of my voice. It's gonna be very complicated. It's not that simple. And so I think where you have to go, instead of going that content, because content is really good for broad, you just make dancing funny videos, and at some point you get some attention, and to anyone you can say, hey, do you want to learn trading? And he's
Yeah.
gonna be like, easy money, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah.
So it's very
Hey, quick break. Before we continue, I'd love for you to join the Wisdom Journey newsletter. Every week, I share exclusive insights, tools, and behind-the-scenes updates to help you stay ahead in your own journey of building an online business. It's simple, practical, and built to help you grow. Sign up today for free at the link in the description. Now, let's get back to the episode.
it makes a lot of sense to do a lot of content for very broad offers, but for specific offers, it makes no sense to do kind of just normal, like, Instagram type reels and stuff. It makes no sense because a lot of people are not gonna see it, and the community itself for hosts are not that big. So it's better to go into places where they're already existing, or where they're showing signs that they're gonna join this community. So, for example, like studio equipment for podcasters, look for some communities, or some, even a good way is look into YouTube videos where it's like best podcasting equipment. And the people who are there and making comments most likely only come, like, a random person who's not interested in podcasting would not find themselves in best equipment for podcasts. Only people who are preparing for podcasts or into that space, or have some kind of interest in learning more about it, they would show up in these videos. So it's really good to go on the comments and actually do a little bit of outreach on YouTube as well. It's a good way. A lot of people have their own small YouTube channel, so it's a good way to actually grab free leads, or really high intent leads, and simply find them on other platforms. So if you can find them on YouTube, very likely they have some other social media already connected to YouTube, so you can actually follow that up, and just make sure you're doing all the tracking yourself. And then the first step is to jump on a call. You have nothing to sell, nothing to offer. Hey, I need to have that leverage, so that video is going to be your leverage. Hey, I have this video. Do you want to see it? That's your opener. Yes. Okay. Watch it. I hope it's very useful. When you decide to begin, okay, thanks a lot. This is very useful. Okay, let's hop on a call. Maybe I want to learn a little bit more about what your podcast is going to be. Just having a natural conversation at the end of the day. If they come in and they say, oh, it's a passion project, I I really want to gather up a bunch of people who are really into guitars, and you see that they're not financially interested, then you simply don't offer them anything. You simply spend that time talking to them, giving them a few tips. If
Yeah.
you see it's somebody who simply is financially not interested, it's going to be very hard for you to even pitch your services, because they're not really fixing a problem. They're kind of playing around. And usually when people are playing around, you cannot sell them anything. It's usually when they're really financially interested, when they have a little bit of pressure, financial pressure, only then do they buy things, But so it's all about that intent. And when you figure out if you have the right intent, person is interested financially, I think I can help them achieve this financially through my skills in podcasting. I can teach them and give them my skills away, so that I could coach them a little bit so they could get their result faster. If you can fix that problem, you deserve to get some kind of an income from that. So, but the first goal is to get some leads, right? And start going into these communities and finding these people. And then start reaching out to them, send them content that you make specifically for podcasts hosts who want to start. And you shouldn't have a lot of content around, just have some strong cases. Like, a single YouTube video is definitely enough. Like just 1 hour video where you show exactly how you did it, what you've done, what equipment you use, everything. You give everything away. That's your hook. You give everything away. And when they come in, they can look at it. Okay, they say, wow, this is very useful. I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna save this. They put it somewhere, they keep it, that video, because they know they'll want to come back to it when they actually rolling. But it sells you as an authority. That video is they voting, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about. I'll keep him in my pocket. And that way you're able to start that conversation. Let's hop on a call. Tell me what you're planning. Tell me what you want. What's your expectations? Then we'll see. Perhaps I could help you with them somehow. That's your entry. And then when you come in, if you see it's a fit, you offer the services. Then when it comes to delivery, then you start coaching. You do however many whatever you decide to do is best. However many weekly calls or monthly calls. Yeah. Then the biggest bottleneck is, getting as many people as on the calls as possible. So I would assume if you haven't made many sales, you need to at least have 30 conversations to make 2-3 sales. So like you need to have 10 conversations to at least make one sale. Really depending on the study and your authority, the less authority you have, and the authority is your proof. Basically, what kind of proof do you have that you can show me? If you can demonstrate me proof, I can say, okay, you are an authority. If you cannot demonstrate any proof, then you're not an authority. And the bigger of an authority you are, the more proof you have, the easier it's going to be to convert. And the more of those conversations become clients. But then you should be aiming at having as many booked calls as possible. And a lot of the times it's simply going to look like networking. Like, so what planning? Oh, I'm from this business. I have an agency. I want to get more clients. So I'm deciding to do a podcast, bring on AI speakers, and I've seen a lot of these hosts already. That's what I'm saying. And what we do, we bring on a bunch of experts, and those experts bring their audiences, and there's a lot of audience intermixing, and the client can come, from that specific expert who's perhaps in really like an authority and SEO, and he could come on this agency for paid ads. They talk about the marketing aspects, and somebody from SEOs come into this podcast and they say, oh, this guy knows about paid marketing. So when I need some paid marketing, I'm promptly going to go to the guy that is trusted by my SEO authority. So it's really good to actually start, building your client base or prospecting base by making that podcast. So a lot of them do it for that reason. But the most important metric I would look, how many calls I'm having, just of these introduction calls, like how many calls am I having? And the more calls you have, naturally, the more sales you make. So you shouldn't be focused on how many sales I'm getting. You should be focused on that, how many those introduction calls I'm having with potential prospects. And that should be as high as possible. That should be as high as possible. Like I would say you should aim to have at least 10 conversations every week. And to have those 10 conversations every week, you need to probably reach out to close to 100 people. And that's the reality of it. So just every day reach out to 15 people, stay on those Reddits, go on YouTube videos, and start, doing that reach out, send make that video first for the leverage as your case study, and then start messaging. Hey, I've made this video showing how I've done it. Do you want to see it? Yes, send the video, and then keep the conversation going and take them on the call. And that's it. That's all you do. And then just doing that repeatedly. If it seems like a lot of work, I would say get help, get some friends help you do it. Maybe you have a young cousin or something who wants some experience. Say, hey, you want some sales experience? Yeah. Come on, help me. And then you can make a Google sheet with a bunch of leads and tell him, this is what you have to do. You have to go find them, message them with this. And then they have to reply. Okay, you ask them, did you watch it? Was it useful? Yes. Okay, let's go on a call. You give them this, and if you have a lot, do you have a lot of cousins or not?
No, no, we have siblings.
Or you have siblings,
Yeah.
so get your brothers and sisters on it, and I mean that's the way to do it. I always leveraged it the same way. It's very common where I am to get a lot of like university students who come on practice experience. So it's easy. Hey, do you want some business experience? Because this is a business experience at the end of the day. It's not like maybe perhaps you're not a successful business, like known business, but it's business experience, and
Yeah.
you can offer. And when they do, I don't know, 3 weeks business experience, maybe some of them book you a 1, 2, 5 calls, so you get something out of it, And if they didn't, well, they got the experience. Because the reality is that outreach looks like this, And right now where I am based in. I'm based in Lithuania, and in Lithuania, it's a big business model right now called appointment setting. So there's a lot of courses and trainers who are training young guys and girls, mostly students, to become appointment setters. And the appointment setter job is to actually connect to your Instagram or start looking for leads and get those leads into a call with you. So it's very common, and I would recommend you look into it, get like appointment setters, and build your siblings into appointment setters. Let them do the leads, figure out, start getting those leads, make one Google sheet, and simply put all those leads in there, and let them follow up, booked calls, and then you go on the calls. You actually find out what their situation, what their goal is. If it aligns financially, then you offer your service. If it's not financial, then you say, okay. If you ever decide to take it financially, let me know, because I have a coaching program where I can help you make more money with podcast. But if you're not interested financially, then it's not going to be for you, because you have nothing to gain from it, and that's it, and leave it at that. And you'll see that I would imagine a lot of people would, change perspective. They say, maybe I am financially inclined, but it's all about having as many conversations as possible. And in that way, as many conversations as possible, you'll naturally have more opportunity to offer something. And if you do it long enough, you will eventually start closing clients. And then once you have closing clients, you make that a case and you kind of feed it back again. How I got my first coaching clients for my podcast business. And then if you can find another coach and say, hey, are you trying to coach? This is my case study, how I found clients. And then you can say, are you financially interested in coaching? Perhaps not other podcasters, but maybe. So that's how it works. But it requires one very important thing, and that is proof. And proof means you actually go and do it by yourself first. You achieve some substantial result that is desired by others. If you haven't achieved something that's desired by others, I'm sorry, but you won't be able to run your own business, because you haven't done anything. So it's going to be very hard to coach somebody, because you cannot coach anyone without having achieved that result.
Yeah.
In these industries like podcasting, I would say podcasting is still a very young industry. It's massive now, but it's still young. And it means that you can achieve some kind of a result in 6 months to maybe a year or 2 years. And you can definitely package it into a coaching material. And there's a lot of I could imagine a lot of people would say, like, how can you coach? You're not the biggest in the world. I would only want to buy from Joe Rogan or something. It makes no sense. And it's very common right now for young industries like podcasting. If you can figure out, how to get, I don't know what are the metrics, but let's say you figure out to get 10,000 listeners every single month, right? I don't know. Is that a big result or not?
That's, 10,000 listeners with the right business and the right offer behind that for a podcast that's a lot of.
But just from the podcast perspective,
Yeah,
is
it's,
10,000 listeners a lot?
yeah.
Okay. What about
No, it's not like
5,000?
it's not like impossible, but it's like it's a lot. It's like the kind of result that, oh yeah, people would want to listen to you, because most podcast hosts don't get listens. They probably get 500 or 100, and maybe at most 1,000. So it's not like a lot impossible, but it's like Yeah, it's a lot. And be like, yeah, I think you know your stuff.
But
Talk to me.
we're talking about monthly.
Yeah, monthly 10.
Okay, so if the average is something like 200, 500, I think like 5,000 is already a substantial. And I could imagine a lot of people would be interested in figuring out how I get 5,000 monthly listeners. But yeah, then it's your job as a podcaster to actually figure out how to get more people listening to that podcast. Either the guests have to be really famous, but a guest who's famous would not go on a podcast where he has nothing to gain. So he would look
Yeah,
for a podcast that's going to make him more famous.
yeah,
So I think for podcasters, a lot of the times the struggle is figuring out topics that attract listeners. Like having talking about specific themes and topics that big audience would be interested to hear.
yeah,
And like these podcasts on Podmatch, and I think a lot of them are very personal, and that's why a lot of them, I believe, struggle because they're too personal.
yeah.
It's like it's good for you, but
Oh,
what does somebody else gain from your personal podcast? It's
yeah,
like so you have to figure out a way to make the podcast not personal. And even me as a guest on your podcast, I feel like this podcast now is like about me, but but it shouldn't feel like that. I should be feeling like this podcast is about your audience, not about me.
yeah,
And um, so I guess for you, you have to figure out what your audience is, and then help me align my message to your audience, right?
yeah,
And that way, maybe something can actually start connecting in the for your podcast. But it's all about figuring out who this podcast is, and I think it's a massive it's a big problem. I'm not saying like it's easy. Like I said it like it's something easy, but it's definitely not
yeah,
easy. It's easy to say for me, but I can expect if I would start a podcast, I would struggle like hell. Like, I would be struggling like crazy, and I'd probably be on the same amount of listeners or maybe less than you. So, so I understand that to actually do it right and execute, it's the hardest problem. Like it's the hardest thing it's the hardest thing to execute. It's easy to talk about it, but to execute it's a completely different ball game. But from my perspective, I would think I'd really have to pick on an audience and find something to talk about. One really good YouTube channel. Uh, have you heard about Coffeezilla?
yeah. The iced
So
coffee hour.
Coffeezilla, he takes his approach to his YouTube videos because he usually goes into drama, right, and into like different influencers and drama.
Yeah,
He taps into existing audiences. So by doing this drama and maybe doing this some kind of he does like spying and cases, and he does
yeah,
experiments and stuff like that. What he does is he makes content so he decides, let's say for example, he decides to make uh, a podcast about Andrew Tate as an example. So then he starts looking for some stuff about Andrew Tate that's not commonly available, that nobody is talking about. And he knows that there is a massive audience of people who are interested what's happening with Andrew Tate. So he basically starts looking for some topics and content he can make for that very hungry audience who wants to know more about Andrew Tate. And that's where the real work is. He starts figuring out what kind of story can I tell about this person who has a massive audience who are interested in learning more about him and wanting more content from him, and then making a video about it and putting a lot of production value into it. And when it comes out, it goes like crazy because there's already an existing audience, even though he's basically talking about somebody else, but he's taking in a new angle about it.
angle. Yeah,
Yeah, and that angle gets a lot of attention from that existing audience. So for you, I would imagine you'd have to look into some existing audiences also in the same way. Figure out that specific audience. It should be a big audience. And I'm not saying, go into like drama and because a lot of
Yeah.
creators I've noticed get big like that, but it becomes really boring. They have no unique angle to them because they're just chasing drama, chasing drama, chasing drama. And it becomes like horrible. Like you have no inner value because you're just chasing drama, drama, drama. It becomes then your podcast has no value because you're just chasing drama to get attention. So there is definitely a balance. I would look into, of course, you're taking guests, so you cannot just make a YouTube video about Andrew Tate or something like that. You need a guest. But I think
Wow.
looking into some topics you can discuss with your guest, where
Yeah.
perhaps your guest has unique perspective on the topic.
Yeah.
So like, and that could you because then your audience would also get something out of it. You have
Yeah.
your perhaps perspective on a specific topic that's perhaps trending or very popular right now in specific circles. If and it should not be focused on drama. Like AI is really big. Like any talk
Yeah.
about AI is very popular right now. Everyone wants to learn about AI. There is still some hype. I mean, I think maybe it's getting a little bit boring with AI. Like, but you have to look for something that's interesting now. And like Clawbot, have you seen some content
Yeah.
about
I've heard
Clawbot?
of, yeah,
Yeah,
I've heard
right
of
now
it.
it's trending like Clawbot. Everyone's trying Clawbot and this Clawbot, and that could be something you need to jump on immediately, and like take a guest on and say, look, this Clawbot topic is really popular. What is your perspective on it? Do you have a perspective on it? And if your guest is saying like, I don't know what it is, then you're like, okay, we don't have nothing to talk about basically. So you have to figure
uh,
out something that's popular right now and something where perhaps your guest has a unique view on it, and you simply bring on that view. And I could imagine that a lot of listeners would get some maybe interesting insights having that different.
yeah.
And that way, me as a guest, I wouldn't have to talk about myself because
Yeah.
like I've had like recently I had like 8 podcasts and all of them I've been just talking about myself. Now I'm just like
Yeah.
I want to talk
Yeah.
about some interesting topics. Like there's a topic
Yeah.
to talk enough
Wow.
about itself. I'm just every podcast I'm just kind of repeating myself, adding a little bit,
Yeah.
taking something away. But so
Wow.
I guess figuring it
Thank
out that topic that's interesting to a lot of people, getting a guest with a unique perspective on that topic, and then having a discussion about that thing, for what 20, 30 minutes.
Wow, thank you so much for that perspective. And now that you've talked about that, I would circle back a couple of months from now once this episode has been released, and we'll do an episode where you give us a masterclass on whatever topic that relates to the audience of your choosing, whether it's using AI for automation, building a backend system, or sales funnel, whatever the case is, and you're just going to break down, and I'll just put my hands on my jaw and just be nodding my head and say, wow, brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where can listeners learn more about the work you do and also connect with
So
you?
to learn more about me, I have a LinkedIn account, Arturas Tarasevicius. If you need some professional help, you can find me on LinkedIn. I also have an Instagram, arturas.marketing. And I do have a free training for media buyers. So I have a school community where it's almost 200 people in there. It is priced for some people, but I do let in every month. I let in some people for free, um, where I teach all of my marketing knowledge that I've gathered over the last 5 years on media buying. So exactly how to run ad and campaigns, how to provide audits, how to find clients, how to deliver that service to them. Basically, this money model that I've been using for the last year. And I started by investing $1,000 into a program, which in the last 5 years, I managed to make close to $200,000 from that 1,000 investment. So it was extremely valuable to me. And now I just put everything in one place, everything that I learned, and I kind of give it away to some people on a lottery every month to join that program. And everyone else who actually wants to take this seriously, there is a paid option.
Oh, thank you so much. I'll put the link in the description so listeners can just click and go directly to the site. Thank you so much, It's been a pleasure chatting with you,
Thank you
and
a lot,
thank you
bro.
for the ideas and all the perspective.
All right.
Thanks for tuning into Wisdom Journey. I hope today's episode gave you practical steps and fresh ideas to keep moving forward. If you found value, be sure to subscribe and share this podcast with a fellow creator or entrepreneur who'd love to learn too. And don't forget to sign up for the newsletter and the link in the description for more resources, experiments, and lessons straight to your inbox. Until next time, keep building, keep learning, and keep walking your own wisdom journey. Yeah.